By 1970, the Beatles were finished, even if the paperwork hadn't caught up yet. The music was still coming out, but the band no longer existed as a living thing. Decisions were being made without conversations. Songs were being released without consent. And for Paul McCartney, one of the most personal moments of his songwriting life slipped out of his hands completely. There was one Beatles song that should have been his quiet farewell. Instead, it became his deepest frustration. Years later, Paul didn't hesitate when asked about it. He didn't soften his words. He admitted it plainly. He hated it. The song was "The Long and Winding Road."
The long and winding road.
Paul wrote "The Long and Winding Road" in late 1968, during one of the loneliest periods of his life. The Beatles were drifting apart. John was emotionally elsewhere. Business arguments poisoned every session, and Paul felt like he was carrying the band alone, creatively and emotionally. The song came from that fatigue. It wasn't meant to be dramatic or grand. It was simple, reflective, almost fragile. A piano ballad about persistence, doubt, and the quiet hope that love might still lead somewhere. Paul envisioned it stripped bare. Piano, voice, restraint, no drama, no spectacle, just honesty. That was the version he loved, and that was the version the world never heard. By early 1970, Paul had stepped back from the Beatles' internal operations. John had privately announced he was leaving. The band was essentially leaderless. Into that vacuum stepped producer Phil Spector, brought in to salvage the Let It Be album. Without Paul present, Spector took "The Long and Winding Road" and transformed it. He added a massive orchestra, a women's choir, sweeping strings, dramatic crescendos. When Paul finally heard the finished track, he was horrified. "It was overdone," he later said. "That was never what I wanted." This wasn't artistic disagreement. It felt like betrayal. Paul had not approved the arrangement. No one asked him. And worse, the song was deeply personal. The orchestration turned a private reflection into a theatrical farewell. Exactly what Paul had tried to avoid. The intimacy was gone. The vulnerability was buried under production. Paul later admitted that hearing the released version made him angry, not just disappointed. "I hated what they did to it," he said. "It was my song, and it was taken away from me." That resentment never faded. "The Long and Winding Road" became more than a song. It became evidence. When Paul filed legal action to dissolve the Beatles later that year, this track was cited specifically as an example of decisions being made without his consent. It symbolized how powerless he had become within his own band. Ironically, the song became a #1 hit in the United States. But success didn't matter. Paul couldn't hear past what it had become. To him, it wasn't his song anymore. Decades later, Paul finally had a chance to fix it. In 2003, "Let It Be." "Naked" was released, stripping away Spector's orchestration and restoring the song closer to Paul's original vision. Piano-led, restrained, human. This was the version Paul had always wanted people to hear. He didn't call it perfect, but it felt honest again, and for the first time, he made peace with it. Paul McCartney didn't hate "The Long and Winding Road" because it was bad. He hated it because it wasn't his anymore. It represents the moment he lost creative control, not just of a song, but of the Beatles themselves. A quiet ending forced into grandeur. A private goodbye turned into a public spectacle. In that sense, the song lives up to its title. It truly was long. It truly was winding. And for Paul, it led away from everything he thought the Beatles stood for. Sometimes the song an artist hates the most is the one that tells the truest story.